So Josh Giddey had another fantastic game last night, and the discourse on Bulls Twitter is getting wild. People either love him or they hate him, and there's no in between, and the arguments are getting out of hand here. And it's, I feel bad for Giddey in some aspects because people keep moving the goalposts on him. If he has one good game, people are like, let me see him do it, for 3 games. When he has 3 good games, people are like, well, let's see him do it for 5. When he has 5, then they push it to 10. Now we're at the point where he's been good for like a month now. He's been good for a good solid stretch here, and people are like, well, let me see him do it for the whole season, which part of me understands. But at the same time, man, can we just acknowledge that sometimes it takes players to get comfortable in a new situation, and it's okay that he didn't start the year great but he's finishing it awesome? Can't we acknowledge that to some extent? Why do we have to say we're not impressed by how he's playing right now because of how he started the year? I just don't get it. But I'm also at the point where I'm just done arguing with anti-Giddey people. The fact is, people have their biases. This kid, he can go out there. He could have a Jokic game. He could do a 30-20-20, and there'd still be people who are like, oh, this is a contract year. He's a contract year merchant. He's just doing this so he gets paid. He ain't going to do this next year. People will never be impressed. If you're anti-Giddey, you're going to stay anti-Giddey, and you might be anti-Giddey for a number of reasons. You might just not like the way he plays. You might not like that we traded Alex Caruso for him. You might still be wrapped up in the bogus case that he got last year. There's a lot of reasons that people seem to dislike Giddey, but what is very clear is they're stuck in their trenches. They're not going to change their mind. So stop arguing with them. That's my thing, is stop arguing with them. Stop the discourse. It's getting annoying on Bulls Twitter lately, seeing people go back and forth over Josh Giddey. We got to acknowledge people are going to have their biases. I have my biases. I'm biased as hell against a lot of stuff. I was a James Harden hater all the way through, even when he was putting up numbers in Houston. I remember when he had that 60-point triple-double, I looked at the box score and I was like, he was playing against Mario Hezonja and Bismack Biyombo. Like, this team is barely a basketball team. It's not that impressive. James Harden did a very impressive thing. I still found ways to shit on it because I don't like James Harden. And I do the same thing to this day with LaMelo Ball, with Trae Young. I have my biases. There's certain players I like, certain players I don't like, and I can find ways to make cases for or against them. We all do it. It's okay to acknowledge that we all do it. And the anti-Giddey people, they're doing it too. So stop arguing with them. You're not going to change anybody's mind arguing over Twitter. The fact is, Josh Giddey, he's playing some good basketball lately. Is he turning the Bulls into a contender? No, there's nobody in the NBA short of the top 10 that could turn the Bulls into a contender. Putting that as a litmus test for anybody is wild work. The Bulls are such a dumpster fire right now. If you swap Josh Giddey with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I think is bar none the best guard in the NBA, and it's not even close, I still don't think the Bulls are a contender. I think the Bulls are like a 6 seed at that point. And that's not taking anything away from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And that's not me saying that Josh Giddey is some all-star. It's just me saying the Bulls are a dumpster fire and they're not a winning organization. So I don't know, man. I don't know what we got to do to look at him in a fair light, in a fair context, but I think it's okay to acknowledge that he started the year very poorly and he's playing much better lately. And the way that him and Kobe have been playing for the last 7 or 8 games or so gives me some hope that they could be our backcourt of the future. They seem to mesh well together. It seems to be that when one is down, the other kind of picks them up. Like last night, Kobe was down. The Heat's defensive focus was all on shutting down Kobe, and Giddey picked up the slack. There's been nights, the night before that, Kobe, he picked up the slack against Orlando. He did everything, and Giddey kept feeding him the ball. They seem to work very well together when it's them out there. I'm really worried for when Nikola Vucevic comes back, because having a 5 like him, who is slow, who's unathletic, who requires low post touches to be effective, those two, they don't seem to mesh well with that style of game. That's one of the reasons they've been so effective, is Zach Collins has a little bit more athleticism and doesn't require slow, low post touches that slow down the flow of the game. So I'm worried for when Vooch comes back. I would love to see him just sit out the rest of the year, if I'm being honest. But if you have them as your starting backcourt, I can see a path where we add an athletic 5. We draft like a Derek Queen or that kid out of Duke, who I can't really pronounce his name. Then we get Modest Buzelis, and then we look for some kind of upgrade at the 4. And that is a competent basketball team to me. But I don't know, man. All I'm saying is Josh Giddey's playing pretty good lately. I wasn't his biggest fan. He's come around. He's changed my mind. But there's still going to be people out there who are still going to make the case against him because we all have biases. Like I said, I have huge biases. You have huge biases. We all have biases. It's okay to acknowledge it. Don't waste your breath trying to argue with the anti-Giddey people if you're a Giddey person. And if you're an anti-Giddey person, stop trying to waste your breath arguing with pro-Giddey people because you're not going to change their minds either.